it's been packed as well. So I think people are finally enjoying the sun, because if you live around here, you know that in the past few months, every weekend, it's been rainy or a little chilly. So I think people are trying to soak up as much as they can while the sun is out.
Yeah, it's so very hot there, the heat dome, but also I think we saw within the last several days or a week, there were some of those severe thunderstorm warnings up and down the East Coast, which was interesting to see. All right, Chelsea, thank you so much. Stay cool there. You're on Live Now from Fox.
Thanks, Andy.
All right, thanks so much. All right, great conversation as always as we're detailing that, and I think that is a big story, a thing on the forefront of so many people's minds along the East Coast is just those extreme temperatures into the triple digits there in Delaware, in New Jersey, up and down the Jersey Shore in New York, Long Island, 97 degrees, and when it's 97 and humid, it certainly feels the parts. A live picture right now, courtesy of our EarthCam partners at Seaside Heights there in New Jersey. You can see the boardwalk, people walking up and down on this sunny day, just about 4:30 on the East Coast. We're back after this. All right, welcome back in here to Live Now from Fox. I am Andy Mack. All right, we're following the latest on plenty of top stories, including this one out of New York, as the prosecution, the defense, they have rested in this Sean Diddy Combs trial. You can see looking live there at the courthouse. Closing arguments coming up here on Thursday. There are going to be marathon sessions, 4 hours for the prosecution, 4 hours for the defense, as the shot you can see now just going away. So detailing that, we'll have much more on that, as we also heard Diddy will not testify, making it official, as the defense will call exactly 0 witnesses. Prosecution did bring forward 34 individuals in this case. All right, let's take you right now out to Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill, as we're seeing John Kennedy, the Republican, make remarks. Let's listen into this live from the Senate floor.
So where's Russia? I mean, it hadn't been a good week for Iran. Where's Russia? On Monday of this week, Iran's top diplomat met with President Putin and asked for help. You know what President Putin said he would provide? Nothing. Zero. Zilch. Nada. Some kind of friend. And you know, it's not the first time that we've seen President Putin's true colors. It's happened before. You would think that Iran would learn. The month after Iran, through Hamas, attacked Israel back in October of 2023, Iran immediately asked Moscow to supply Iran with, because Iran knew what was coming, and so did Hamas. They knew retribution was coming from Israel. Iran asked Moscow for jet fighters, for attack helicopters, air defense systems, and training jets. And Iran was sure that their buddy Putin would be there. Putin sent them a few jets and said, "Go away, don't bother me." And then, not long ago, when Israel took out the better part of Iran's air defense system, its Golden Dome wasn't exactly golden. It was more like tin. But the Israelis took it out. Iran asked Russia, said, "Look, we have to rearm. We're naked and alone here. We need more air defense missiles to shoot down their Israeli planes." President Putin said, "Go away. Don't bother me." What a friend. President Putin has done it to other countries. Russia has had alliances not just with Iran through the years. I'll give you a couple of examples. Armenia and Russia were best buds. Two peas in a pod. But when Armenia got in a war with Azerbaijan, let me say that again, Azerbaijan, once again, you couldn't find Russia with a search party. Iran and Russia worked together to prop up al-Assad in Syria. Remember that? When the people of Syria were revolting against Assad, who had blood under his fingernails, you know who kept him afloat? Iran, yes, but especially Russia. And then Assad got in trouble. And that's when he really needed Russia. And he went to Mr. Putin and said, "Help me, help me." And Mr. Putin said, "No, you're on your own. You can come to my country where they..." president's request. The president has sent to us a rescission package. It's $9.4 billion, as you know, Mr. President. $9.4 billion. The president is asking us to remove spending that Congress appropriated for areas in foreign aid and for public broadcasting. I want to talk about the foreign aid part. We're going to have plenty of time to debate whether we ought to agree with the president. But I want the American people to understand the type of spending porn that President Trump is asking to take out of Congress's budget. The Honorable Jody Arrington, who is a congressman, damn good one too. He's chairman of the House Budget Committee. The congressman put together just a few items in the foreign aid spending provisions that the president's asking us to remove. This list is illustrative. It's not exhaustive. And I just wanted to point a couple of these programs out. Again, this is spending the president is asking us to revoke. You be the judge, folks. It's your money. American people can decide whether we ought to spend their money on this or take it out as the president has requested. 4, here's my chart, but I don't know if you can read it. Put up the, in fact, it's the wrong chart, Henson. Put up the other one, mate. I'll just mention a couple of the programs. Congress appropriated $4 million for sedentary migrants in Colombia. The president wants us to take it out. Congress appropriated, and let me say, in many of these cases, we didn't appropriate the money for the specific things it was spent on. The bureaucrats did that. We might have sent the executive branch, let's say, $3 million for foreign aid, and the executive branch, the bureaucrats there decided, under President Biden, decided how the money would be spent. So I know Congress is not blameless, believe me, but we did not approve these specific items of expenditures. We approved the amounts and the general subject area like foreign aid. The bureaucrats did the rest. The bureaucrats decided to spend $3 million for circumcision, vasectomies, and condoms in Zambia. You decide whether that's a priority. $3 million for sexual reproductive health in Venezuela. $2.5 million for teaching young children how to make environmentally friendly reproductive health decisions. I didn't know there was any such thing as an environmentally unfriendly reproductive health decision. $167,000 the bureaucracy has spent or is proposing to spend on free education and health care to migrants in Ecuador and Venezuela. $67,000 to provide insect powder to children in Madagascar. Mr. President, have you ever had insect powder? Don't answer that. I don't think I'm even supposed to be asking you under the Senate rules, but I haven't had it. In the area of LGBTQIA and gender programs. And again, you be the judge, whether this is something we ought to be spending your money on when we got $36 trillion of debt. LGBTQIA stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex, and asexual. The one I had to look up was intersex. Apparently, intersex is when someone identifies as both a man and a woman. The bureaucracy wants to spend $5.1 million to strengthen the, quote, resilience of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex, and queer global movements. The President has asked us to take it out. $833,000 for services for, quote, transgender people, sex workers and their clients, and sexual networks in Nepal. $643,000 for LGBTQIA programs in the Western Balkans. $567,000 for LGBTQI programs in Uganda. $33,000 for being LGBTI in the Caribbean. In the area of the climate, Mr. President, the bureaucrats want to spend, and President Trump wants us to take it out, $6 million appropriated for net zero cities in Mexico. $2.1 million for climate resilience in Southeast Asia, Latin America, and East Africa. $614,700 for climate adaptation, including growing coral reefs in the Caribbean. $500,000 to Rwanda to buy electric buses. Your money. $8,000 to promote vegan food in Zambia. In terms of electoral assistance, the bureaucracy has some ideas about how we ought to spend the money appropriated to the executive branch to help people in their elections. The bureaucracy wants to spend $1 million on voter ID programs in Haiti. If you know anything about Haiti, it's a mess. They're not about to have elections anytime soon. $889,000 for electoral reforms and voter education in Kenya. In the area of media, arts, and culture, the bureaucracy proposes to spend $6 million to support media organizations and civic life in Palestine, and $3 million for Iraqi Sesame Street. This is just a taste, Mr. President. This list is illustrative. It's not exhaustive. So when you see us debating whether we should reduce the federal budget by $9.3 billion, which the House has already decided to do, and now it's our turn, and I say which I have repeatedly said and will continue to say, is that all the President is asking us to do is cut the spending porn from the budget. You can make up your own mind. It's your money. If you think you ought to be spending the money on this, encourage us to vote no. But if you think you could spend this money of yours better than the bureaucracy could, or we could spend it on our kids or our roads or our health care, then encourage us to vote yes. Thank you, Mr. President. I see my colleague, Senator Warren, is here, so I will yield the floor.
All right, you're just listening in there. John Kennedy talking about the ceasefire between Israel and Iran, but also about the big, beautiful bill, of course, that could gain some momentum with the most recent strikes in Iran. Let's slide away for a quick 2-minute break. We'll take you out to more lawmakers after this. All right, welcome back in here to Live Now from Fox. I am Andy Mack. We're learning more about the success of the U.S. airstrikes on those 3 Iranian nuclear sites on Saturday. And I wanted to put this up here on Live Now from Fox from Meg Kennard, the Associated Press, saying early U.S. intelligence reports suggest the U.S. strikes only set back Iran's nuclear program by a few months. This, according to the Associated Press. And we're also hearing from different members of the Trump administration about some of this. You can see from Aisha Hasni, Fox News reporter, saying the Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth responding to it, saying, quote, based on everything we have seen, and I've seen it all, our bombing campaign obliterated Iran's ability to create nuclear weapons. Our massive bombs hit exactly the right spot at each target and work perfectly. The impact of those bombs is buried under a mountain of rubble in Iran. So anyone who says the bombs were not devastating is just trying to undermine the president and the successful mission. Also, comments from Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, denying reports that the Iran nuclear facilities are intact. So, of course, we'll follow this here on Live Now from Fox and hear from more experts throughout the day and the week. Right now, though, let's take you out to this United Nations Security Council meeting, hearing from representatives of Iran, the Islamic Republic. Let's listen into this here on Live Now from Fox.
That blatantly violate international law, the UN Charter, the Statute of the IAEA, the General Conference Resolution, and Resolution 2231. This Resolution 2231 calls on all UN member states to avoid actions that undermine the resolution and the JCPOA. However, with the full US support, Israel has targeted Iran's peaceful nuclear facilities, civilians, and civilian infrastructure. Israel falsely justified these attacks on Iran's peaceful nuclear program as an imminent threat. This claim is baseless and has no legal base. In reality, Israel, the region's only undeclared nuclear-armed entity and non-party to NPT, refused IAEA inspections and monitoring, while Iran complies with the NPT and has subjected its nuclear program to the most rigorous IAEA monitoring. The breach of Resolution 2231 and international law is not limited to Israel. The United States, a permanent council member responsible for upholding its resolution, also attacked Iran nuclear facilities under IAEA safeguard. Third, it is profoundly troubling that even after a decade of Resolution 2231, Iran's fully monitored peaceful nuclear program has been repeatedly targeted by Israel and the United States. These illegal actions set a dangerous precedent, undermine the non-proliferation regime, and damage the credibility of the Security Council. Resolution 2231 was intended to promote peaceful solution and strengthen the Council's role in preventing unnecessary crises. However, reckless attacks on Iran's peaceful nuclear facilities by Israel and the US has gravely weakened this role. It is disappointing that the Council failed to condemn these illegal attacks, despite a strong request by Resolution 487, which prohibits such illegal acts. We call on the Council to, at the very least, explicitly condemn these aggressions and ensure they don't happen again. Fourth, the double standards are blatant. While the US, the UK, France maintain massive nuclear arsenals and overlook Israeli undeclared stockpiles, they baselessly claim Iran's peaceful program threatens international peace and security. These political accusations have been refuted for years by Iran's transparency and by its full cooperation with IAEA. If they truly care about the non-proliferation regime, they must condemn Israel's violation of international law and Resolution 487. Fifth, claims that Iran has violated Resolution 2231 are groundless. For past decades, Iran has upheld Resolution 2231 and the JCPOA. Our remedial measures have been fully consistent with these two instruments, meant only to restore balance and encourage all parties to return to their commitment, Iran's remedial measure must not be misused to justify new pressure on the JCPOA or Resolution 2231. The Council must prevent any attempt to manipulate this mechanism against Iran. Sixth, Resolution 2231 must conclude on schedule, and Iran reject any attempt to revive expired provisions under any pretext. Unfortunately, European JCPOA participants have failed to meet their obligation. Even worse, they falsely assert that Iran is close to acquiring nuclear weapons, a falsehood unsupported by credible evidence. Our peaceful program under strict IAEA verification cannot be denied. Despite this aggression and the unconstructive behavior of the European parties, Iran remains committed to diplomacy and peaceful dispute resolution. Resolution 2231 proved that diplomacy can and must resolve differences. Seventh, Iran continues to believe a diplomatic resolution to nuclear and sanction issue is possible. Our commitment is evident through our full implementation of JCPOA and Resolution 2231. But if the other parties truly want a resolution, they must respect Iran's right and stop undermining diplomacy. 8. Iran never initiated this war. Once the aggressors stopped their attacks, Iran stopped its lawful military response as well. Nevertheless, Iran will not overlook the deceit and double standards. Our brave armed forces remain fully prepared to respond to any further threats or violation. Finally, to conclude, Madam President, we are now closer to diplomacy than ever before. The long, large-scale war they thought could force Iran into so-called unconditional surrender and make it abandon its peaceful nuclear program through intimidation, threats, and the use of force has failed more clearly than ever. They unleashed their full military might, supporting and providing Israel with advanced fighter jets, sophisticated weaponry, and the most powerful bombs, even bunker busters, to attack Iran's peaceful nuclear facilities, and covertly, deliberately, and indiscriminately targeted civilians and critical infrastructures. These attacks led to the martyrdom of hundreds of innocent people, including women, children, nuclear scientists, academics, athletes, students, aid workers, and senior military officials, and left thousands more injured. We honor martyrs for their sacrifices as well as our brave, patriotic people in defense of our homeland. Iran emerged proud and steadfast in the face of this criminal aggression. This proves one simple truth more clearly than ever: diplomacy and dialogue are the only path to resolving the unnecessary crisis over Iran's peaceful program. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the Islamic Republic of Iran for his statement, and I give the floor now to the representative of Germany.
Madam President, I would like to thank Undersecretary General Di Carlo, Ambassador Spogar, and Ambassador Lambrininis for their valuable briefings and continuous efforts to implement United Nations Security Council Resolution 2231. For 2 decades, this Council has been deliberating on the Iranian nuclear program. We find ourselves at a particularly difficult juncture today. France, Germany, and the United Kingdom have consistently made every effort to find a diplomatic solution with Iran and will continue to do so, but the Iranian nuclear program remains a threat to international peace and security. Last Friday, the E3 foreign ministers and the EU High Representative met with their Iranian counterpart in Geneva to call upon Iran to engage in negotiations. We will continue our joint diplomatic effort to address all concerns associated with Iran's nuclear program. We have always been clear: Iran must not have a nuclear weapon. It can only be a non-nuclear weapon state under the NPT and must respect its nuclear safeguards obligations. Our efforts, conducted jointly with many partners around the globe, have aimed at preventing Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. We successfully concluded the JCPOA, which put robust and verifiable restrictions on Iran's nuclear program and would have provided the entire international community with confidence that Iran's nuclear activities remain exclusively peaceful. Throughout the last years, we witnessed an